Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Roundtable here at mycountylink.com as we take a look at interesting things going on around not only Greenville and Darke County, but also West Central Ohio. And Alex Warner here along Gail and Blosser on my right, Mike Stiegel, and honored again today to have another distinguished politician from West Central Ohio representing us over in Columbus, and this is State Senator Steff Huffman. And Steve, welcome. We know you've had just a really busy few weeks here lately.
Sure. The week before last, I deployed as a medical team manager with Ohio Task Force 1, a urban search and rescue team that's trained in swift water. There was 47 of us and 2 dogs that went down to the floods in Kentucky. First day, we evacuated about 230 some people that were surrounded by water with our boats and with the assistance of a helicopter from their Air National Guard. So it was a very rewarding week, and now this week was a very busy week with Senate Bill 56.
Yeah. How long have you been with Ohio Task Force 1?
I have 3 or 4 years, and we mostly deploy. My other deployments were for hurricanes down in Florida and South Carolina. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before we get into some of the issues we're going to talk about here, let's a little bit about your background. I know a lot of people out there already know the Huffman name, but just a little bit about where you were raised, went to school, and your medical practice and things of that nature.
Sure. So I grew up in West Milton, went to the University of Toledo where I was able to play college football, was captain my senior year, went on to medical school at the University of Toledo College of Medicine, and then I came back, lived in R-Tipp City with my wife and 5 children. My 5 children are grown now, but have lived there for 30-some years, and initially elected county coroner in Miami County, and then spent 4 years in the House, and this is my 4th term in the Ohio Senate. So, but as a practicing physician, I'm the very first physician ever elected to the Senate in the state of Ohio.
Now, what's your specialty within the medical field?
Emergency room medicine, but worked out here at Wayne Hospital for many years.
Ah, okay. And so you were a West Milton Bulldog?
Yes.
West Milton Bulldog went up and was a rocket up there at UT. My brother and sister-in-law both went to MCO at the time.
Well, it was MCO. Yes,
yeah.
I was MCO.
Was it MCO then?
Yes, it was MCO.
Yeah, they both graduated from up there too. So, anyhow, how did you happen to get involved in politics?
My dad was county prosecutor for many years. He was on the state central committee for 25 years, and in 1980, I was 15. My dad was a delegate for Ronald Reagan at the National Convention. He took me, and my sister and I stood 10 feet from Ronald Reagan as he made his acceptance speech in Cobo Hall in Detroit, Michigan. So I would practice medicine for a long time and never thought I'd get into politics, but wanted to make Ohio a good place to practice medicine and a good place for my kids.
Okay, I used to see you on the sideline at CJ games.
Yeah, always, yeah, for many years.
Oh, you were a team doctor for the football team? Julian?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, so what were your first steps? What was your entry point into politics then?
Well, initially it was county coroner. Right. Besides that, was active in the local party and to help get people elected, and so.
Now, did your cousin influence you?
No, my cousin Matt. We didn't. We talked about it, and but he has had a great influence and a great mentor for me and many others over the last 10 years or so. But it was kind of independent, and it happened kind of quickly and unexpectedly, but has been very good ever since.
And then you've been in office then for how long?
Well, I was elected coroner from 12 to 14, and then in the House from 14.
Yeah. Okay, and then this is your first go-around as a state senator. Then,
well, this is my second term as a state senator.
Second term state senator. Okay. Well, Michael, you've known this man for a few years here, and Galen has too. You want to start things off here, or what do you want to bring up?
I think what we need to talk about, especially, I think it's going to be very important here for Darke County and Greenville, is the Senate bills and the marijuana dispensaries. And I know for a fact that you were instrumental in helping get some of this set up. Mm-hmm. So you want to tell us how this is going to work and what's going on?
Sure. From my position, people, I have had a number of bills about marijuana, and they're like, well, you're promoting marijuana. And I look at it as I am trying to, every time, to restrict things. So I had a bill in 2016 that legalized medical marijuana. And the goal with that was to delay recreational, because right after the ballot initiative, there was a great concern that recreation would come back. It worked for 8 years.
And I will say this about Steve. When that first happened, I can remember Steve and I talked about it, and he was saying, it's going to happen, we've got to get a handle on it. So let's get ahead of it. And I know that he was one of the leaders on this.
Yeah. Excuse me, Nick, I've got a paper over there I forgot to bring over. I had some questions.
Okay.
It looks like these questions right here.
All right. So in 2016, we did medical marijuana. It's delayed things. Many of us were against the ballot initiative, the initiated statute in 23, but it was the will of the voters, and we have to have the will of the voters. So in December of 23, when my cousin Matt was president, we passed a bill that very similar to the one that we passed yesterday to rein in some of the different things. It passed along party lines yesterday, and I can't fathom the reasons why the other side, so in the bill, it would only allow smoking of marijuana in your home. Mm-hmm. The other side could not agree to that, and I don't know how I could go watch a ball game at Greenville Park and someone sitting next to a 10-year-old girl smoking marijuana. Mm-hmm. To me, that's just outrageous. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I could not get the other side to agree to was smoking in your moving vehicle. Somebody sitting next to you smoking marijuana as you drive, as getting high. Another provision is a convicted felon cannot own a marijuana business. Mm-hmm. Okay, you can work there, you can be the foreman, the supervisor, anything else, and they just thought that was horrible because I was taking jobs from people. Well, there's 5,000 other jobs in the marijuana industry in the state of Ohio. So,
yeah. I have a question. So issue 2 that was passed November 23, that's an initiative. What's the difference between an initiative, referendum, amendment? How does that all work? Because the initiative gives you the right to tinker with it, correct?
Right. So there's kind of 3 different ways that the voters, one, like issue 1 was a constitutional amendment. So you have to get more signatures and from different counties. And it's always there, and the General Assembly can't change it. So issue 2 was an initiated statute, which means it goes into the revised code, and we could change it as a General Assembly at any time. You need less signatures. It's less difficult to do. And then a third way is that the General Assembly could actually put it on the ballot to make not a constitutional amendment, but in the revised code. So that was the difference, and a lot of people, we'll never know why people, maybe it was for the homegrown, maybe it was for public smoking, different things, but what we do know is that there was a choice to put it in the revised code so that we could change it, which we voted out of the Senate yesterday. But I believe in the next 10 years, we'll probably change it several times, maybe not as drastically as we did yesterday, but tweak it to make it better for the people.
Were you surprised that it had a 57% approval on that initiative, the issue 2?
No, the polling was 60 to 65% that people wanted it. I had an idea and that we should get ahead of it again and pass our own thing, and people wouldn't need it. We could control it, but that didn't happen. So, but we also have to look in West Central Ohio that people in Darke County, Miami County, Mercer did not vote in favor of it. So, but we have to respect what the people say at the state level. But Senate Bill 56 is to make it better, in particularly to make it the security and safety of children.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know, looking stuff up, I know Galen and Mike have questions too. 118 municipalities around the state now have at least the last figure I saw, have moratoriums where they're allowed to prohibit medical dispensaries of marijuana as well. Well, not medical, but in this case, recreational use dispensaries. So that gives individual localities the right to, self-govern on that, right?
Yes, local control. They can decide, and that's been their decision. That was one thing I insisted on in 16 on the medical marijuana is that people should, local jurisdictions should be able to decide that themselves.
Yeah, I know here in Greenville, Galen, I don't know if you covered that. The city councils had some disputes on that, correct?
Yes, they have, and they want to make this city where you cannot have medical marijuana.
Yeah, because they've talked about going on the ballot again, if I'm not mistaken, about.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, if I'm not. Yeah, Mike, what have you heard about that?
That's what I'm hearing too, is the people in town would like to see it go on as a ballot initiative. Steve, how do you feel about it?
I mean, again, that was part of my bill in 2016 is to have local control. You have to balance, the city of Piqua has 2 dispensaries. They're looking at probably $300,000 to $400,000 in tax revenue a year. So you have to balance that, but you also have to balance the message that you give the youth and the young people in the area to say, hey, look, we're okay if we get good money to have something that we feel is bad for you. Yeah, so there's a mixed message that you send to the youth, and there needs to be a balance there, but it's good to have local control to make that decision.
Now, in the old bill, it was, weren't you allowed to have 12 plants at home, and now
Yes.
it's down to 6?
In this bill, it is down to 6. So what does a plant do? A plant can grow 600 joints a year. And if you have 6 plants, that's almost 10 joints a day, which seems to be a large amount. And a lot of things the bill does is try to cut down on the illicit market. And so what do you do with your extra 5 or 7 joints? You go out and sell them. And as dumb as the law was written, that you could have 6, your spouse could have 6, but Sheriff Whitaker couldn't do anything till you have over 24.
How'd that happen?
That's the way it was
The 12
written.
limits?
Well, the limit is 12, but the law can't do anything. It was,
Wow.
it was poorly written, and so 6 seems to be, in a whole household, seems to be a reasonable number, and that was a lot of things we were doing with what is reasonable and appropriate for the people of Ohio.
One thing I noticed, medicinal dispensaries, a person who's going for medicinal marijuana really isn't limited. They could go to 3 or 4 in a day's time, right? Where recreational users, and the way it was originally written, can only go to 1 a day. But how do you regulate it? How do you control that? How do you track something like that? That's impossible,
I don't
isn't
know.
it?
In the medical field, we have something called a high automated reporting system. So I can track any medical user.
Okay.
I can go to the computer with my sign in with the Department of Pharmacy and say where you went and how much you got, and including any other.
So you can track that?
I can't track that. The department can track all the recreational.
Okay. I was worried. I thought, how could you possibly know, just going from site to site, around the state and so forth that way. A couple other things. So you talked about not wanting somebody smoking out in a public park with a 10-year-old around and so forth. SB 56 then, it's only in your residence?
Only in your residence,
Inside, outside?
inside your residence.
Can't be in your backyard?
Well, no, but, it's not, you're not supposed to. But it also restricts that you have to have the land, if you're in an apartment, you have to have the approval of your landowner.
Okay.
So, your landlord. And if they say, no, I don't, because look, I mean, if you're in a duplex or an apartment building and you sit and you're smoking marijuana, it's offensive, to the guy next door. So the landowner has the ability to say, no, you can't do this.
Okay, so we've had a 10% excise tax on marijuana. Was that both medicinal and now the recreational? And I know that's being changed now with this bill, correct?
So, in the original bill in 16 on medical marijuana, the Constitution says that you cannot tax food or drugs. And so when we labeled it a drug, we did not tax it. There was the normal 7.5% or whatever the sales tax is. You could do that, but and so in the initiative statute, it put a 10% tax, and
Right.
it identified where that the locals would get 36%, 30-some% go to mental health and different things. So in Senate Bill 56, initially, I had it going to the General Revenue Fund, and we were going to decide through our process where it should go. But finally, this bill came out that just said, that left everything the same at 10%. The governor's budget that came out about 4 weeks ago took it to 20%. And so the thought of the bill that we passed yesterday is that we're in the middle of the budget process, and if we pass this bill with the House, there's going to be a conflict with the budget. So we're just going to let the budget decide where that approximately $300,000 goes a year going forward. So the money's not in there. 20% that the governor put in there seems high, because a lot of the goal of 56 is stopping the illicit market. So if you tax it too high,
Yeah.
people will continue to go to Michigan.
point.
They will go to the black market to get it. So, Michigan's at 10%. The average around the country is about 15, and I think more than likely through the budget process we'll end up somewhere around there.
Now, you said 300,000, you mean 300
million,
million?
300 million.
300 million, because the last stats I saw, and again, we all look stuff up, we're like at 370 million in tax revenue since August, something like that.
So think of this. In 25, recreational marijuana is going to fail to be about $1 billion industry in the state of Ohio.
In sales?
In sales.
Okay.
So we're going to generate $300-400 million in tax revenue.
Right.
That's $1 billion that drug dealers are not making in the state of Ohio.
Yes.
I mean, look, I understand that there's a lot of negatives with adolescence and addiction and the gateway drug, but think of that. We're taking $1 billion out
of their pockets.
Out of their pockets. Now, granted, when a state goes recreational, there's a slight bump, maybe 10-15% new people come into the market, and 10% of the people stop going to Michigan to buy it. But that's $800 million to $1 billion taken out of the illicit market, which I think is a good thing.
That's a real good thing.
Yes.
Yeah. One thing that do they still, these dispensaries, it has to be in a cash transaction, correct?
Yes.
And that cannot be run through the federal banking system?
Yes.
Because it's illegal at the federal level, correct?
Right. So we're here in 16, we're here in 25, the absolute failure of the federal government. They will not recognize marijuana in any way because it's a scheduled one drug, just like methamphetamine, just like cocaine. It's a scheduled one drug. So you can't sell it, you can't do it. And to me, especially from the medical side, if you're a scheduled one drug, Ohio State cannot do scientific research on the medical benefit. So we don't have any real medical research that tells us that it's beneficial because it's a scheduled one drug. The first Trump administration, they talked about moving it to a scheduled 2, and so did Biden administration. But on the banking, that it is not unusual. So some of the licenses are $250,000 a year. And it is not unusual that someone walks in with literally a suitcase with $250,000 because it is a cash transaction. We can't, track it in any way. Now there's a few credit unions around the state that, since they're not federally chartered, that they charge large fees to take that risk because literally it's a drug transaction that's illegal. So that's another reason it should be a Schedule 2 drug for the banking.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you bring all this cash in, my gosh, and you have to take it to the bank and just deposit cash.
Yeah.
And anything over $10,000,
It
you go
can't
set
be
up a
over
red
10,000.
flag.
And to me, at the close of business, that's open season
Yep.
for any criminal element out there that says, hey, Mike, that little briefcase you're carrying is about 20 grand today, let me have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve, if you could draw your own bill, what would you have in it? What would a good bill from you look like?
Well, first of all, again, I would do away with it, but, you know, the people have spoken, and I think, you know, the vast majority of things we did yesterday in Senate Bill 56 is what I would do with, you know, no public smoking. You know, we decreased a lot of regulations because the ballot initiative, there was a medical program, and then they set up the recreational program. We combined a lot of regulations together so that a business doesn't have to, you know, get a medical license and then a recreational license. There's a lot of duplication. But I think Director Konepka and the Medical Marijuana Control Commission has done a wonderful job in setting the rules to limit it and truly make it safe for everybody.
How does Ohio's law now compare with others in the country?
I believe the medical marijuana is thought to be the foremost program in the country, and I think after 56, you know, gets passed, because I know it's a priority of Speaker Huffman and Mike DeWine. Going forward, I think it'll be one of the best ones. But there's more to marijuana in a similar vein, and it's called hemp. So hemp is a derivative of the cannabis plant, just like marijuana, and has low-level THC. I had a bill in 2018 that legalized cultivation of hemp in the state of Ohio. And at the time, we were talking about manufacturing hemp, that you would make it into clothing and car parts and stuff, thing like that. Right. And the market has evolved to CBD oils. And you can, in Greenville and Darke County, all over the state, you can go into mostly convenience stores or tobacco shops and buy hemp products that have THC in it. You know, I was talking to Sheriff Whitaker, and, you know, and he said, you know, they tested one that had 9% THC in it.
You said 9?
9% THC in it. There's no age limit. There's no verification for anything, and it's a horrible product. Governor DeWine has talked about this for, over the past year. I had a bill last year. The House just, at the time with that speaker, just didn't really feel that it was necessary, and I introduced Senate Bill 86 that will get our first hearing and will be fast-paced to get through the Senate and to the House. But they get about it legally in the sense that it's not actually THC. It's another derived substance that you put a carbon and manipulate it a little bit, and as soon as you smoke it, as soon as you light it, the combustion turns it into THC, and then to become intoxicating. And our youth all over the state has found this in that loophole.
If I'm not mistaken, in Senate Bill 56, you were going to reduce the potency of the THC content of marijuana, because the marijuana of today is entirely different than the marijuana back in the 60s and 70s as far as potency.
So as it goes, so at Woodstock, the average THC level was 6%. Today, with horticulture and everything that they can do, they can grow it at about 36% today.
Yeah, I do.
And so you know, Woodstock, maybe you got a buzz, but you're getting stoned at 36%.
No kidding, 6 times as potent.
Six times as potent. So in the bill, we're at 70%, but each gummy can only have 10 milligrams. So we limit the amount. So it just means how much filler it in, and also in this bill and in other bills, you're not allowed to adulter the leaf. You can't add extra THC. You can't add in anything to it. So it limits it going from there.
Yes, that's one of my great concerns, is the kids have availability of the gummies and the different off products, you might say, as opposed to marijuana. Is anything in the bill gonna really, you said about 10 milligrams.
Right. So first of all, you know, you have to be 21 to get into the dispensaries.
Well, we know how that works.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but especially for the younger kids, initiative ballot initiative didn't have any advertising restrictions, and this bill has very strict, very similar to alcohol. You can't advertise where kids are. You can't have cartoon characters or mimic candy or anything like that, so that there's no advertising in any way for children. But no, I agree. I mean, I'm not naive. It's going to happen to children too, but we're going to do our best with Senate Bill 56 to keep it away from children.
With alcohol, you have breathalyzers.
Yeah.
Is there anything available to police and state patrol if they stop someone that they feel is
Intoxicated. No, I mean, they have their field sobriety test. Unfortunately, science has not caught up to, in alcohol, we have a very, if you're above 0.8, you feel intoxicated, but there's no number. And the thing is that marijuana THC is fat soluble, so it sits in your fat, and you don't get it. Alcohol doesn't do that. But there is a provision to continue a drug-free workplace. So in there, if you have a dirty drug screen with marijuana, your employer can terminate you, and you won't get unemployment. Because we have to protect the employers around the state that are required by federal and state law that they have to have a drug-free workplace. Now, some employers may not. There's many employers that do not test for marijuana now because it's so prominent. But the difficult, and Senator Blessing spoke about this yesterday, is that you may enjoy a joint on Friday night, and then you go to work Monday and have a urine test and you're positive. Well, you're not intoxicated, and unfortunately, hopefully in the next several years that science will be improved enough that we can identify by some blood level that if you're intoxicated or not. But it's difficult at this time.
What's your feeling as far as marijuana being a so-called gateway drug to harder drugs and so forth? Because it's like 3-2 beer used to be back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
Does that lead you into, hard liquors, addiction, alcohol, you being an alcoholic? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't disagree. For some people, that it is a gateway drug, but a lot of it, today, drug dealers will lace fentanyl into the drug. And so if we get that $1 billion off the street,
Yes.
it is a great benefit to society so that you don't get into that. But I also agree that, for some people that may have a propensity to, continue to drift, it happens, but there's other people that just enjoy marijuana too.
I know if you talk to Sheriff Whitaker, he will swear that it is a gateway drug. He says because he can, out at the jail, he has like repeat offenders
Yep.
that started out with marijuana and now they're on something. He said, you can't tell me it is not a gateway
Yep.
to something bigger.
Yep,
And he has sworn by that for years.
yep.
Is that a general assumption, or is that just like you said?
That's just what
It's
he-
how an individual handles
Well, I
it.
That's
think
what he
so,
sees,
yeah.
but that's what he sees with the drug addiction people
Yeah.
he gets out of the jail. They all started with marijuana. So
Can marijuana be put into vaping?
Yeah, so about a third of all marijuana in the state of Ohio is sold through an oil, a vape product. So about 50% is leaf, and then about 15 to 20% is gummies and edibles.
So you've got more information than we do, because what's the status now? You talked about fentanyl. I mean, that's just run rampant, and that's the drug that really bothers me, I think, as far as how it impacts people. I mean, it's not just you're intoxicated, I mean, you're dead.
Yeah.
What's the latest in the state of Ohio?
Well, yesterday, Senator Johnson, we passed a joint resolution to declare fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction in the United States. Because it is. I mean, it has been the last 10 or 20 years. The numbers happily have started to level off, but it's still a horrible drug, and we need to continue to do everything we can to prevent it.
Yeah, and you just don't know what's in what. I mean, they
That's
can
it.
put that in just about any little pill that's out there, and these kids, pop a pill and that's the ball game. So
The difference between fentanyl, it used to be, the heroin, is that the fentanyl is about 20 to 30 times more potent. So you can have 1 gram instead of 30 grams. So it's 30 times the concentration. So you can have much little and not know it. So
yeah. And again, fentanyl used properly for anesthesia and
right.
things of that nature. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's still widely used and a very good drug in the practice of medicine. But the main thing with that is that I know, as in medicine, I know the concentration and I know the amount. And drug dealers, they cut it, and if you get a more pure one, then you're taking the same amount, and it can be deadly.
Where is fentanyl basically coming in from?
Mainly China. A lot of the precursors come from China to Mexico to the United States, and I think it's just the Chinese way to to combat Americans in our society is that they can get in that direction.
Yeah. Well, we're getting near the end of the show here, Michael. Final questions.
I know, like I said, when I was commissioner, him and I talked about it, and I remember him saying, we've got to get ahead of this. And Steve, I want to thank you for every effort you've done. You're doing a tremendous job over there, and glad you're here.
Sure.
We really are.
Yeah, Galen?
I appreciate everything you do, Senator. I know a few years ago, I met you down at Arcanum, and he does things that goes under the radar we don't see. Their opera house. He spent the whole morning there with the people, trying to help them, and so.
Not by singing.
No, but I represent Southern Darke County, and and I don't know if my Aunt Connie and Uncle Bill lived here for all their adult lives, and my nieces and nephews grew up here, and have spent a lot of time over here with my family. So,
but he does a lot more than just.
Yeah, what we see out.
I do.
And that's the kind of person we want over at the State House.
And you can
does
see,
that.
just by listening to him and what he's done with this bill, that he's a very effective senator.
Yes, sir.
Well, real quick, I know you're going to end it, but I have also introduced the bill to totally eliminate personal income tax in the state of Ohio to give everybody a 4% tax hike, and we will continue to proceed in that direction in the state of Ohio.
Great.
But thank you for having me today.
Oh, thank you.
One thing, I had to laugh a little bit. You said you and, I forget whoever, were sponsoring a joint resolution.
Yep.
Now, that didn't have anything to do with.
Little wordplay
Yeah, a
there.
little wordplay there. I'm worried about that. Hey,
thank
thanks
you.
so
Thank you
much
very
for
much.
taking
Thank you,
time out of a
Steve.
busy
Appreciate it.
schedule. We certainly appreciate it. So, hey, on behalf of cameraman Nick Schmidt and Galen Blosser, Mike Stiegel, Alex Warner here, again, State Senator Steff Huffman, and thanks so much for taking time out and enlightening us on what's going on not only in Columbus, but also here locally in regards to the topic we just discussed here. So hope you folks enjoyed this presentation, the roundtable here on mycountylink.com. We'll see you next time. So long, everybody.